Signed, sealed, delivered. A budget for the books. Where Toronto's tax dollars are going and how much more it will cost you to live in the city. Good evening. The big headline for your family's finances, the highest property tax increase since amalgamation.
And the largest test yet of Mayor Olivia Chow's leadership. CTV's Mike Walker is live with our top story tonight. Mike.
Well, the mayor receiving support from councillors this afternoon. There will be a 9.5% property tax increase, the highest since amalgamation, as you mentioned. The mayor says it's necessary to cover the cost to improve services while addressing the deficit. Toronto taxpayers will see a historic property tax increase, the highest since amalgamation.
And we have to stop the decline.
The mayor defending the hike to pay for city services while addressing the $1.8 billion budget deficit.
You have to pay your way. If not, you just rack up debt and use up all your reserves.
Taxpayers will see an 8% property tax increase combined with a 1.5% city building fund for transit and housing. The average homeowner will pay an extra $338 this year.
Homeowners will have to pay less than $1 a day.
The mayor argues it's a modest increase, but some councillors are not buying it.
9.5 rate hike will have implications on the backs of the taxpayers.
Attempts for a further reduction were unsuccessful.
I hear from constituents all the time, every day, on the TTC, on the street, in small business shops. They can't afford it.
Time and time again, we see City Council say yes when it comes to spending more in this city. And here it is, the manifestation of those really expensive decisions, those checks that we've written that city just can't seem to cash.
Council also granting Toronto Police the full $20 million budget increase the force requested. The motion put forward by Councillor Amber Morley and was supported by the mayor.
We also are responsible to our residents to ensure adequate and effective policing, as well as other, important city services. Toronto Police is a part of that equation.
The police budget initially was $12.6 million less than what police requested, but the 11th hour change comes after the mayor says the federal and provincial governments will provide financial support. The chief says the funding is needed to reduce response times that now average 22 minutes.
The mayor and I did speak the other day, and we discussed the need for a multi-year strategy, hiring to ensure the capacity of the Toronto Police can be reconstituted towards something more akin to adequate and effective service delivery, and the need for other levels of government to engage in the discussion on how this city is kept safe.
But it wasn't a unanimous decision.
We don't have a guarantee that response times are going to be lowered. And so there's some other questions, like what are the deployment choices that are being made, and also some expenses that are really stand out, an increase in uniforms.
Council also voting to restart windrow clearing. The budget also includes additional funding for shelter spaces and warming centers, a freeze to TTC fares, and $67 million to build the Scarborough busway along the decommissioned Line 3.
To change course, to fix those potholes, invest in public transit and housing. We can't do that without paying for it.
As City Council finalized Toronto's spending for the year. So at this hour, councillors are discussing how the budget will be implemented. As for the police top-up, it's still not clear how much the federal and provincial governments will be providing. For now, the city will be turning to the reserve to cover that cost. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Next to the province pulling the plug on a pilot program at select LCBO locations.
Checking and scanning the IDs of almost anyone entering the store, but just a day later, those plans are parked. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live with more. Siobhan.
Well, Manitoba's already running a program similar to what the LCBO was contemplating, but the finance minister wants them to take a little bit more time to consult and consider the consequences.
The aim was to prevent theft, cut down on violence inside LCBO stores. But the finance minister is telling the LCBO to go back to the drawing board after hearing serious concerns around privacy.
I'm sure they haven't thought this through at all because it makes no sense.
Anne Kavukian is Ontario's former privacy commissioner.
Privacy is all about control. It's about personal control over the use and disclosure of your data. And obviously, you have no control whatsoever in this scenario.
The liquor store had planned to scan photo IDs of anyone 17 and older just to get in, testing it out at 6 stores in Northern Ontario for a year. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association says it would have been a sweeping violation.
We don't agree to have our bodies searched on the way into and out of a store. We would no more agree to having our data collected and stored.
There was concern about what happens to the door data when there is a theft.
All that data gets turned over to police of people who just walked in, just went to buy a product that they sell at the LCBO.
Mendelssohn Aviv also expressed concern about the locations chosen in the north.
That there could be a disproportionate impact on data sweeps of First Nations people who at the end of the day are just going shopping.
In a statement, the LCBO says that it remains committed to working collaboratively on measures to reduce theft and violent incidents and to ensure safe experiences for customers and employees.
Get a guard to keep an eye on these things. Don't extract people's personally identifiable data.
Especially in an age of sophisticated hacking and data breaches.
The LCBO didn't answer questions today about whether or not they consulted with government before announcing the pilot or who they will consult with as they try to come up with a new plan. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Straight ahead, a city caught in a congestion crisis. The new push to clear up the crammed commute.
Let's head outside for a look at the conditions on this Valentine's Day evening. Ooh, a nice sunset there on what was a really bright and sunny yet crisp day across the region. As we move into the hours ahead, you'll want to bundle up or cuddle up with your Valentine perhaps as the wind chill dips into frigid territory and we anticipate a measurable dose of snow tomorrow. Let's bring up the satellite radar so you can see what's happening this hour. You can see to the west in the Kitchener-Waterloo area some light snow. Nothing here in Toronto. Temperature-wise this hour, -1 in the city, but the wind chill making it feel like -6. Much the same elsewhere. Colder in Oshawa with -3, -2 this hour in Hamilton and Brantford. Here is a look at what's happening overnight. We'll dip down to a low of -7. It's going to feel like -10 with the wind chill, so bundle up for your plans this evening. Partly cloudy conditions, winds out of the northwest. When you wake up tomorrow, it'll be -4 when you step out the door, and you will want to dress for snow and prepare for it because we are going to get a measurable dose. We'll break that all down for you a little later in the newscast.
Breaking news from Kansas City, where it was supposed to be a day to celebrate the Super Bowl win, but gunfire erupted following today's parade and rally, killing one person, and up to 15 others were injured.
At the conclusion of the Chiefs rally today, there were shots fired on the west side of Union Station. Immediately, officers responded to the area, took 2 people into custody, and also immediately rendered life-sustaining aid to those victims. We're still gathering information on the number and the status of victims.
The shooting happened near a train station near the rally. Police officers stormed into the building while people who'd been attending the Super Bowl celebration scattered for cover. Areas that had been filled with crowds were empty after the shooting. Police are aware of reports the fans may have been involved in apprehending at least one of the suspects, but can't confirm that. When you hail a ride with services like Uber or Lyft, how often do you consider how much your driver is taking home?
Turns out many of them say it's less than minimum wage, and that's driving them to protest. CTV's Janice Golding reports.
The protest outside City Hall started early this morning. Dozens of rideshare drivers here in Toronto joining others in Winnipeg and Vancouver, asking their employers to show them some love this Valentine's Day. The rideshare drivers who work for Uber, Lyft and DoorDash say they're fighting for better pay and against unfair labor and business practices.
I earn in hour $8 or $10.
When customer pay like $50, we get like $15, $17. It's not worth it.
The protest follows the release of a recent report by advocacy group RideFair, which suggests that rideshare drivers in Toronto made a median of $6.37 per hour last year, which is less than half of the minimum wage in our province, while the companies they work for make huge profits.
80 hours a week for $850. I get out of bed, I get in my car. I get out of my car, I get into bed. That was it. I had a family, I just never saw them.
In response, Uber Canada said drivers in Toronto made about $33.35 an hour during engaged time last quarter.
Now, the drivers here say that's only for the amount of time they actually have passengers in their vehicles, and it doesn't account for the travel time to get to the passengers or the amount of time they spend waiting on the app for customers.
In response, Uber says we look at engaged time because drivers can have multiple apps open at the same time to optimize their time and earnings. It's this kind of flexibility, including being able to be on multiple apps at the same time, that attracts people to drive with Uber in the first place. DoorDash, meanwhile, didn't address wages directly, saying in a statement, "We're extremely proud that millions of Dashers have turned to DoorDash to help reach their financial goals by earning how, when, and where they want, and they've earned over $35 billion doing it." That said, we do not expect any significant impact on Valentine's Day.
Just in rideshare drivers alone, municipal data shows, it could be upwards of over 3,000 workers that leave the platform every single month. And there's a reason for that.
Stop harassing Uber drivers!
Toronto's protest is one of 3 that took place in Canada today, and organizers say 44 U.S. cities and several cities overseas were also involved, with drivers asking employers to open their hearts and their wallets to them this February 14th. Janice Golding, CTV News.
When you're sitting in traffic, it's something you can't help but consider. What can be done about all that gridlock?
It's a question for the ages, and everyone has an opinion. The Board of Trade, just the latest to weigh in. CTV's Sean Leathong is live with more. Sean.
Well, Nathan, Michelle, you see frustrated drivers, or perhaps you are a frustrated driver nearly every day in Toronto. But what the Board of Trade is focusing on is not just the frustration of drivers, but actually lost productivity. Whether it's rush hour traffic on the Gardiner, battling through the construction along University, or moving through the lakeshore, driving in Toronto is...
It's stressful. It's always stressful. I've lived in this city for 25 years, and it gets more stressful by the day.
Toronto's famously congested roads have recently been rated in the top 10 most congested in the world.
Lanes closed and construction and diverting and trying to figure out the right route, and you're not going anywhere fast.
The Toronto Region Board of Trade says congestion isn't just a problem for your patients. It's costing the city lots of money.
We estimate that the city is losing about $11 billion annually in lost productivity. So that's people sitting in traffic, businesses that have deliveries, goods and services of all kinds, sitting in traffic when they could be being productive.
Board President Giles Garrison says they're putting together a task force to help provide solutions to congestion.
Are roadways, in some cases, well enough planned, or is the layout and design appropriate for the level of traffic that we have? There could be some changes.
They've already met with Mayor Olivia Chow and say things like increased traffic officers are helping, but aren't a long-term solution. They hope to release a report in a year's time. Today, along this construction zone, ideas were clear.
How would you fix this?
This should be done at night.
With much of the focus on the high number of construction sites taking up lanes.
You know how we have these lanes with like the construction sign saying only one lane? Maybe do that less times, because like right now it's only one lane of traffic, and then it's like all the way down and maybe more exits.
While some were just frustrated.
If you go from the street, it's crazy. Everywhere closed.
And others even said it's fine right now. Do you find the city too congested at all?
No,
Why not?
because you need to improve your city, so you have to do this fast.
And to some, relieving congestion maybe means just keep moving. What do you think they need to do to kind of fix this?
I don't know, but I gotta go. Thank you.
So when they were focusing on the idea, the Board of Trade was saying that the city of Toronto, in wanting to compete with other worldwide cities, is actually losing businesses that may come to the city. So they say the idea of opening up the roads could actually make this city more competitive. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. You may have noticed your subway commute got a little slower this week. The TTC says it's running trains at slower speeds as a precaution while repairing several parts of Line 1 and Line 2. The TTC implemented several new reduced speed zones starting Monday. Subway operators can be asked to slow down because of crews at track level or ongoing maintenance. Transit officials tell CTV News Toronto they found areas of track that had state of good repair needs, and they're aiming to reduce stress in those sections until that work is done. The TTC says ongoing early service closures have been taking place to speed up repairs.
2 people have been arrested in connection with a murder this past weekend. 27-year-old Zachariah Wardir and 49-year-old Ninos Koshaba have been charged with second-degree murder. Police were called to an apartment near Weston and Lawrence just before 6 in the morning on Saturday for reports of a fight. 27-year-old Edwin John Redmond died at the scene. Meanwhile, police are searching for a third suspect, 42-year-old Laban Mahmoud, in connection with the deadly incident.
2 people and 2 cats were rescued safely after a 2-alarm fire broke out in Cabbagetown overnight. Emergency crews were called to a low-rise apartment on Sherbourne near Carlton at around midnight. The fire prompted a ladder rescue from an upper unit. No injuries were reported, and TTC buses were brought to shelter residents from the building as the flames were extinguished. The fire is believed to have started in a unit's living room. The investigation is ongoing.
Next to the final chapter in a long and bizarre story, sentencing for an Ontario woman who faked numerous pregnancies to defraud doulas. CTV's Jeff Pickle reports.
It's the end of a long and very difficult chapter.
Sorry,
For some of the victims of Caitlin Braun.
I'm upset. I'm really upset. I was with her for nearly a week. I was one of the victims who had assault charges before they were withdrawn. I am disgusted with her lawyer and our Crown attorney.
In January, Braun pleaded guilty to 21 charges of fraud, mischief, and indecent acts. Today, she was sentenced with 10 months already behind bars. Braun will now be under house arrest for 2 years and another 3 years on probation.
It goes to show that our justice system is broken. I'm still struggling with the fact that she's walking around somewhere.
Many of Braun's victims left wanting more.
I honestly cannot believe the sentence they imposed. And I think the judge kind of could agree with that. He was also quite upset.
In his ruling, Justice Robert Gee said he struggled with the sentence submitted jointly by the Crown and defense. Judge Gee saying, "I do not like this joint submission and I do not like how it was structured." Adding, "I have concerns about the mental health assessment and its findings that Ms. Braun is likely to reoffend." But he says in this case, his hands are tied. He says judges are told to go along with joint submissions even if they disagree. "I feel I am constrained to follow the joint submissions." Many of Braun's victims also worried about what comes next.
I think even based on what the judge said today and what all the reports come back is that we're all fairly confident she's going to do this again.
The doulas say they have been traumatized by this ordeal, but remain defiant.
No, I'm not going to let her win. She will never win. I'm going to continue to help people and give people the best support I can, and I'm not going to let her ruin it for me.
I'm damn good at what I do, and I think everybody else here that's a doula is good at it, and I'm not going to let Caitlin ruin that for me or for the families that I support.
The legal chapter now over.
Trying to move on a little bit. Trying to get back to normal.
The healing still continues.
Jeff Pickle, CTV News.
The province's alcohol regulator is moving to suspend the liquor license of a Muskoka restaurant. It's alleged the establishment overserved a customer with fatal consequences. The Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario issued the proposed 60-day suspension against the Kelsey's restaurant location in Huntsville. Back in November of 2022, AGCO alleges a customer was served 18 shots of liquor in less than 4 hours. It's reported the customer then drove away and died in a single vehicle crash. Regulators say liquor license holders have a duty not to serve customers who are or appear to be intoxicated. Kelsey's parent company has yet to comment.
The federal carbon price is going up, and so is the rebate. As scheduled, the carbon tax is being hiked another $15 per ton. The increase will add another 3.3 cents to a liter of gas and about 2.9 cents to a cubic meter of natural gas. But the government says 80% of families will get more from the rebates than they pay in carbon pricing. $36 more in Ontario. Meanwhile, the Liberals rebranded the rebate today.
Prime Minister can't defend his policy, so he's changing the name. People hate the carbon tax because 60% pay more into it than they get back in his phony rebates. So today he announced a costly rebranding of the hated carbon tax.
He proposes to take away the carbon price rebate, the Canada carbon rebate from millions of Canadian families across the country. The Canada carbon rebate is going to be there to continue to deliver more money to 8 out of 10 Canadian families.
The government says families will get between $760 and over $2,100 in rebates this year, depending on where they live. Rebates are set by province based on total fossil fuel use in each jurisdiction.
The federal government is being taken to court for more than $5 billion. That is how much Canadian PPE manufacturers are seeking in damages. They allege Ottawa made misleading statements during the pandemic about markets, direct assistance, procurement, and long-term support. And those misrepresentations resulted in about $88 million in investment losses, as well as more than $5 billion in projected lost market opportunities.
A storm that roared through the U.S. Northeast has now hit parts of Atlantic Canada. A lot of snow's fallen on parts of Nova Scotia. There were 35 centimeters in Cape Breton this morning and about the same in the Halifax area. The storm caused school closures and flight cancellations. Much of Newfoundland and Labrador were also in the storm's path. Up to 60 centimeters of snow is forecast for the eastern and northeastern part of the province, including the St. John's area.
In southern Lebanon, 4 people were reportedly killed, nearly a dozen injured in Israeli strikes today. Sources tell Reuters the level of damage from the attacks on villages is considerable. Israel says rockets launched from Lebanon earlier in the day left an Israeli soldier dead and 8 other people hospitalized. The Jewish state insists it is not interested in a war on 2 fronts, but will respond if provoked. Hezbollah indicated there will be a response.
Israel vowed to press ahead with an offensive in Rafah, despite growing international calls for restraint. Residents say Israeli forces shelled eastern areas of the city overnight. It's the last refuge for displaced Palestinians in southern Gaza. Today, Israel's prime minister said the military will take action against Hamas in Rafah after civilians have left the area. But he did not say where the hundreds of thousands of people might go or when the offensive might begin. In Khan Yunis, Palestinians have begun evacuating the main hospital in the southern town. Video showed dozens of people carrying their belongings, making their way out of the Nasser hospital complex. The Israeli military said it opened a secure route to allow civilians to leave, while medics and patients could remain. Weeks of heavy fighting has claimed the lives of several people inside. The health ministry says Israel is continuing to isolate the town's 2 main hospitals.
In The Hague, a complaint was filed against Hamas today at the International Criminal Court. A group of former hostages and relatives of those still being held rallied outside the court in the Netherlands. Their lawyers presented prosecutors with more than 1,000 pages of evidence and called for arrest warrants for Hamas leaders on charges including genocide. The October 7th attack killed 1,200 people. About 250 others were taken hostage.
In Ottawa, pro-Palestinian demonstrators briefly disrupted the House of Commons.
On these irregular contracting and this perhaps breaking of the rules. This is an important issue, and that's why we're taking it seriously, Mr. Speaker.
A handful of people chanted "Free, Free Palestine, Stop Arming Israel" during question period. Security escorted the protesters out, but some kept chanting near the exit. The speaker stopped debate for 2 minutes before resuming proceedings several minutes later.
A major player in the Middle East has arrived in Canada. Jordan's King Abdullah II was welcomed to Ottawa this afternoon. And the war between Israel and Hamas is expected to be the main focus during talks with Prime Minister Trudeau. The 2 men are set to discuss how to expand urgent delivery of humanitarian relief for civilians in Gaza. They'll also express support for a sustainable ceasefire and talk about a path towards lasting peace in the region.
Ukraine says it has destroyed a Russian landing ship in the Black Sea. The military says naval drones hit the vessel off the coast of Crimea. The vessel can carry tanks, troops, and other cargo. Ukraine is not saying how many drones were used, but says the mission took a long time to prepare. There's been no comment from Moscow. It's the second time in 2 weeks that Ukrainian forces have said they sank a Russian vessel in the Black Sea.
Meanwhile, Canada is providing Ukraine with more money to help it reclaim the skies.
These funds will help to secure and source much-needed F-16 equipment and supplies, such as spare parts, weapon stations, avionic components, and ammunition.
The $60 million is part of a $500 million pledge in military support made by the Trudeau government last spring. Today's announcement was made at a gathering of NATO defense ministers in Brussels.
Millions of people around the world are observing Ash Wednesday. In the Philippines, people had their foreheads marked with an ash cross today. A priest, minister, or designated layperson applies the consecrated ash in the shape of a cross. The ashes are made from palms used in the Palm Sunday celebration last year. They're christened with holy water and scented by exposure to incense. Ash Wednesday marks the start of the 40-day season of prayer. Morgan Rielly's appealing his 5-game suspension. The Toronto defenseman was disciplined for a cross-check to the head of Rielly Gregg. The Senators' forward had just taken a slap shot into the Leafs' empty net. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman will handle the appeal because Rielly's ban was 5 games or fewer. It's his first discipline of any kind in an 11-year career. Rielly served the first game of the ban last night, sitting out against the St. Louis Blues.
It's going to be a very special night at Scotiabank Arena. For the first time since being traded, Pascal Siakam is back.
It's weird. I mean, I think I was coming in and I have to go to the little stairs on the other side. I mean, I've never even been to that part of the building. I think maybe during the playoffs, I went to that side because I think the interviews was over there or something, the podium. So there's places where I've probably never been. So it's just kind of weird, to be honest. But just, seeing the building, obviously, a lot of memories here, you definitely, you feel comfortable, I know I have a different jersey on, but just coming into this building is again, it just brings back a lot of good things.
Siakam played the first 8 years of his NBA career here in Toronto and was a big part of that championship in 2019, but he is now an Indiana Pacer following last month's blockbuster deal. Still, that won't stop fans from showing their love tonight. The team says there will be a lengthy pre-game ceremony for the fan favorite. Coming up, moving and grooving on this Valentine's Day, a toe-tapping tradition at a Toronto junior public school, raising funds and spirits for a classmate coping with health struggles.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, it is Valentine's Day, a time for love, flowers, and chocolate, but unfortunately also scams. Canadians were ripped off more than $50 million in romance scams last year. I'll have the red flags to watch out for. That story is just ahead.
Partly cloudy, we've dipped to -2 this hour and getting colder. Expect a wind chill of -11, 12 this evening. If you've got Valentine's Day plans or you just have to head out to and from work tonight, it's cool. Big heads up, however, is for tomorrow. Environment Canada has issued a winter weather travel advisory. In the morning, -4 when you start the day. A bit of sun, but flurries start in the morning. The bulk of the snow comes in the afternoon. Heavy at times, anticipating 5 to 10 centimeters. There's also wind in the mix, so visibility could be an issue. And the evening, it kind of tapers off, but then you really have the heavier winds, which could mean blowing snow. We'll break down your full 7-day weathercast further and get you ready for tomorrow's event. On this Valentine's Day, you may want to surprise the ones you love with flowers, chocolate, or maybe a romantic dinner date.
But if you're still looking for love, you have to be careful. Canadians lost more than $50 million to romance scams last year. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Michelle. Many people use online dating to try and find a partner, and many do end up in successful relationships. But you also have to be careful, as scammers are also on dating websites and apps searching for victims. We can tell you red flags to watch out for. Many people looking for love turn to online dating, hoping to meet that special someone. But scammers are also scouring the internet, trying to catch you off guard.
Who doesn't want love?
The Better Business Bureau says often a scammer will profess their love for you quickly, communicate daily, and before long say they need money.
They need some legal fees, a medical emergency, and looking for funds from you. It's a red flag.
The con artist may nurture an online relationship for months, but always have a reason why they can't connect with you face to face.
If you've never met the person, they always have an excuse as to why you can't meet them. It's a big red flag.
When you're communicating with a scammer, their information is geared to fool you, their profile a fake.
They take photos of successful people or other people on the internet, and they just create a profile picture of this, of this individual. And likely they're sitting somewhere in some other country where it's difficult for law enforcement to get to.
Never give out your financial or personal information. If you try to stop a relationship, they may threaten to extort you for money.
He had photos of her. He knew what workplace she was at and started saying, if you don't wire me, if you don't take a loan against your house and wire me all this money, I'm going to come after you.
Often the scammers will have dozens of fake relationships on the go, trying to get money wherever they can. Almost 1,000 Canadians were scammed last year out of an average of $50,000 each. If you're caught in a romance scam, you're urged to report it.
You're not alone out there. These scammers are good. And if report it, this way you might protect somebody else from being taken by them.
And scammers are not just using dating websites, they're also sending random texts and emails hoping you'll answer back. If you don't recognize someone trying to contact you, don't answer it. On your side, I'm Pat Ford.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Toronto police are advising the public to watch out for a door-to-door flood protection scam. The Financial Crimes Unit says people have been trying to get into residents' homes while falsely claiming to be from the city's basement flooding protection program. Police say the city does not conduct door-to-door sales of any kind. If you have concerns about a person at your door, police say don't let them in and call their non-emergency line or 311.
The most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
All right, to the forecast, we know that snow is coming. It's been a while. It's almost strange to say it, but I got to say, I'm glad that it's not today. Today's Valentine's Day. People have plans, so let them wait.
Nothing's going to stop lovers from getting together. I mean, the cold weather might bring people together for warmth, but yes, we don't have the snow yet, but we are in for the first really big snowfall that we've had in weeks. It has prompted Environment Canada to issue a special weather statement right across the GTA. In Toronto, we're anticipating 5 to 10 centimeters, and there's wind in the mix, so visibility can be an issue at times tomorrow. Let's take you through it. Here is our snow accumulation map. Here's what the models are suggesting for us. Really 5 to 10 centimeters, maybe as high as 11 centimeters for Toronto when it's all said and done by the end of tomorrow. Less, about 7 centimeters predicted for Hamilton, just 2 in Niagara Falls. And if you go to the northeast, 21 centimeters in Aurelia, 20 in Huntsville, 17 in Peterborough. So really the message is if you are traveling tomorrow, you have to factor these conditions in. Here's the satellite radar, and you can see in the west, the system is around Minnesota, Wisconsin, and it is pushing through. So we've got this high pressure that gave us beautiful sunshine today that is leaving us, and in comes low pressure and the snow. The forecast radar is showing that the snow should arrive. See the leading edge there? So that's 9 a.m. Not heavy snow, but flurries to start. And if we move it forward, then you get towards the noon hour, and that's where you have the bulk of the system and the heavy stuff. And it pushes through, and then by the evening, it's out of the city. There's a tail edge there, though, too. So for the evening, there could be some more snow, but more like flurries, and then it pushes out in time for your Friday where we could just have some flurries. So really the big event is tomorrow. Tonight, however, -7 is your low with the wind chill feeling like -10. So it is cool. Tomorrow our high -1, but with all that wind we've been talking about, it'll feel more like -8. So we're getting snow and we're getting cold. No chance that any of this is going to be rain like it has been in recent weeks. Here is your 7-day forecast, anticipating 5 to 10 centimeters for tomorrow, a high of -1. Friday brings some sunshine, just a 30% chance of flurries, so really we should be able to dig out by then, and the high at the freezing mark. Saturday, Sunday, mix of sun and cloud, the potential for flurries. High of -4 on Saturday, a high of 1 on Sunday. And then next week, it looks like we settle down. Seasonable temperatures, actually a little above seasonal, and some sun in the mix. So be prepared for tomorrow. And then after that, things should calm down.
Researchers are trying to understand how climate change is impacting the world's largest bear. So they strapped cameras with GPS trackers on 20 polar bears in Canada's Hudson Bay region. During 3 weeks of ice-free periods, the resulting video was analyzed to see how the bears adapted to the loss of Arctic ice. It turns out they were forced to move inland to find food, they lost body mass, and resorted to eating berries and birds. Also tonight, the ROM is getting a makeover. The Royal Ontario Museum's $130 million renovation. What visitors can look forward to in the years ahead. The Royal Ontario Museum has announced plans for a massive transformation that gets set to get underway soon. The initiative is called Open ROM. The museum says it will open up the site to the public with changes to the main floor and the Bloor Street entrance. Once construction is complete, Open ROM will see 6,000 square feet of new gallery space on the second and third levels, as the main floor is devoted to cultural and community events.
Another piece is the dramatic increase in programming and performance and engagement that will make this a place as close to 24/7 as we can. We're making the entire ground floor of the museum, when this project is done, which is about 86,000 square feet, a free and open zone where people can come and go as they like.
The project was funded by private philanthropy, including the largest cash donation in the ROM's history, $50 million. Construction is expected to start in early 2024 and last 3 years. The ROM will remain open to visitors during that time.
The ratings are in after Jon Stewart's return to The Daily Show Monday night.
They are the oldest people ever to run for president, breaking by only 4 years the record that they set.
Nielsen Media Research says around 930,000 viewers tuned in the States, the highest for the comedy news program since 2018. Stewart previously stepped away from The Daily Show back in 2015, but he's hosting Monday night episodes in the run-up to the U.S. presidential election.
The trailer for the upcoming Deadpool movie released during the Super Bowl is already setting records.
You don't just stand there, you ape. Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much.
The trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine has now become the most viewed movie trailer ever within 24 hours of its release. Disney said it had 365 million by that point, in time surpassing Spider-Man No Way Home. The new Deadpool stars Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and is out July 26th. And Marvel Entertainment shared the leading cast for its upcoming superhero flick, The Fantastic Four. A Valentine's Day card shows Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Ebon Moss-Barack. They'll be the next quartet to take the roles from the original Marvel comics after a 2015 box office flop at Fox. There were no details about the plot, but The Fantastic Four is set to be released in July 2025.
Netflix dropped a new clip from the upcoming season of Bridgerton to mark Valentine's Day.
Good night, Mr. Bridgerton.
Do you not need a chaperone?
Spinsters do not need chaperones.
You are not a spinster.
The clip shows some of the tension on the way in the 19th century romantic drama, like the seasons before it. Season 3 follows the romantic journey of a new sibling in the high society Bridgerton clan. The first half of the season streams May 16th. After the break, getting down for a good cause, a Valentine's Day dance-a-thon at a Toronto junior school that will warm your heart.
On the next CP24 Breakfast,
we get a visit from one of the kids in the hall. Bruce McCullough stops by to talk about his live shows called Tour Tales of Bravery and Stupidity.
CP24 Breakfast up first at 5:30.
And I think what happened here today is leadership, frankly, by the mayor and by city councillors.
Updating our top stories, Toronto's police chief expressing his support for the mayor after council approved the full $20 million budget increase requested by the service. Discussions for the full budget are set to continue into the evening.
We don't agree to have our bodies searched on the way into and out of a store. We would no more agree to having our data collected and stored.
The province is scrapping a pilot program which would have seen customers asked to show ID before entering some LCBO stores. The plan, which was announced yesterday, is now being called off after concerns were raised about privacy violations.
When customers pay like $50, we get like $15, $17.
Rideshare drivers rallied across the country today, including in Toronto, to demand better wages from their employers. The demonstrations come after a report indicating drivers in Toronto made a median wage of just over $6 an hour last year.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar is up about 1/10 cent to end the day at 73.83 U.S. Oil losing $1.20 to 76.36 U.S. a barrel. And the TSX Composite Index gaining more than 300 points to 20,889.
Bell CEO and other top executives are being called to Parliament Hill to testify about last week's job cuts. The House of Commons Heritage Committee wants answers about Bell's move to cut 4,800 jobs, cancel multiple newscasts, and sell almost half of its radio stations. The layoffs were Bell's largest in almost 30 years and come as the company reported a profit of $2.3 billion in 2023. The invitation calls for Bell executives to testify on February 29th. CTV Toronto is part of Bell Media, a subsidiary of BCE.
The Canadian Real Estate Association says January home sales jumped 22% compared with a year ago. That increase was the largest year-over-year gain since May of 2021. Compared to December, nationwide home sales were up 3.7%. The CREA says trends suggest the real estate market is turning the corner, but is still working through some ongoing weakness. The national average home price was around $659,000, up 7.6% year over year.
Meanwhile, an economist at the Royal Bank of Canada says Ottawa's two-year cap on international student admissions will not lower demand for rentals in the near term. Rachel Battaglia says there will still be a net increase of 100,000 new international students in Canada this year. That's about 55% less than 2023, but still an increase. Battaglia said the number of international students in Canada and rental demand would eventually decline if the cap is maintained past 2025.
Microsoft and OpenAI are sharing new findings today, showing hackers are using ChatGPT to improve their cyber attacks. The companies say they've detected and disrupted efforts by groups backed by Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China. They allegedly used large language model tech to refine how they target certain victims. For example, ChatGPT could help write messages so a specific person is more likely to click on a malicious link. Microsoft and OpenAI said they haven't identified any significant attacks using the tools they're monitoring closely.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
If you haven't been reminded yet, today is Valentine's Day, and for many couples, that means flowers are a must.
This is our second busiest day. It's crazy. It's wonderful to see all the men lining up to buy flowers. It's an exciting day for sure.
Market Four Seasons says Valentine's Day is only second to Mother's Day for the demand for flowers. CP24 even captured the moment one man was spotted on air and then received a call asking him to buy more flowers while he's still at the store.
Love is also in the air at the Toronto Zoo after two snow leopards made each other's acquaintance. The zoo says 9-year-old bachelor Pemba has been living in the Eurasia Wilds area since late 2021. He was recently introduced to 2-year-old female Jita, who joined the zoo last fall as part of a breeding program to help the species survive. The zoo says after a few weeks, and thanks to a lot of careful planning by animal experts, the pair are now getting along great.
Finally tonight, feeling the love at this adorable dance-a-thon.
Students raising spirits and money for a good friend. Here's CTV's Raheem Ladani.
Leading the dance-a-thon alongside his mom, 8-year-old Liam is grateful to be celebrating Valentine's Day with his schoolmates.
I'm feeling great. I'm back in school, and school's fun.
In 2019, Liam was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia and admitted to the hospital for sick children. Last year, he was readmitted and is once again undergoing treatment.
I felt heartbroken because this is my second time having this.
Liam's friends at Mill Valley Junior School have also found news of his diagnosis difficult to deal with.
It felt like a little empty, sort of.
I missed him in general emotional ways.
To help them feel more connected, the school turned their Valentine's Dance-a-thon into a fundraiser for Sick Kids Hospital. Last year, they raised around $8,000.
We're hopeful for Liam, but we have to have hope for all the other children that have cancer.
Liam's mom says he thankfully has not required a bone marrow transplant, which she attributes in part to his resiliency.
He's amazing. He's got a joie de vivre that I take my lead from. But the ups and downs have been challenging.
But their family continues to face them head on, with Liam looking ahead.
For the future, I feel like I would be done my chemo back then, and I'll be in grade 4, so I would have to learn French and stuff, and it would be pretty fun.
Liam's fundraising efforts in total have helped raise more than $55,000 for Sick Kids Hospital, with the funds going towards the hematology and oncology department. Raheem Ladani, CTV News.
It's a story that warms your heart, and we could use it. Special weather statement in effect, warning of 5 to 10 centimeters for Toronto. It will affect travel conditions tomorrow. This hour, it's just cold, -2 in Toronto, -1 in Burlington, -2 in Hamilton, and there's a wind chill. Your date-night forecast is just cold and getting colder. By 11 p.m., it'll be -7. There's a wind chill making it feel like -9. So the snow event is tomorrow, bit of snow in the morning, but really around noon in the afternoon is where the heavy stuff moves in. 5 to 10 centimeters possible when it's all said and done. So it's a shoveling snow event, a high of -1. Friday, Saturday, Sunday comes down, chances of flurries, but around the freezing mark and a little bit cooler, and it settles down for next week.
Be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Natalie Johnson with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For all of us at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.